welcome to the 103rd Pennsylvania Farm Show. I'm State Senator Kristin Phillips-Hill, represent the 28th District in York County, and I'm very fortunate to be joined here today by Secretary of Agriculture, Mr. Russell Redding.
Great to see you. Congratulations and welcome. Welcome to a new year at a new farm show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
really glad that you're here to talk with the folks in the 28th Senate District about a lot of important issues facing the agriculture community. So you know that agriculture is the largest industry in Pennsylvania, and it's the largest industry in York County. So let's start off, let's talk about the U.S. Farm Bill. A lot of good things for Pennsylvania in that Farm Bill. Can you share with the viewers how we benefit from that federal farm bill?
I mean, you can't talk about sort of farm policy in Pennsylvania without talking about the farm bill, right? It shows up on conservation and the trade and food safety, risk management, water quality. You make the list of all the things that we have to do as a department. You'll find a component of our federal government, particularly the farm bill, there. Recent farm bill, very pleased with it. We had some reservations about whether it would actually look like Pennsylvania agriculture or not. What does that mean? There's a heavy commodity interest in that farm bill, cotton and rice and row crops. Not that row crops aren't important, but we want to make sure that farmland preservation was in there, that issues around Chesapeake Bay were addressed in there, and they are. Concerns about food nutrition for those who are at risk of hunger was in there, they are. So we're really pleased with it. A lot of work to do. Dairy is also in this farm bill, and it's a major step forward for some dairy policy. It's not perfect. We've talked about this dairy and how complicated it is, but at least having the right sort of revenue protection for these farms in the farm bill is an important step, and it's there.
Great,
so
great.
It's good.
And dairy is a huge industry for Pennsylvania.
It's amazingly big.
Probably the largest sector of our ag economy here in Pennsylvania.
Right.
We faced a lot of challenges here in Pennsylvania with our dairy industry.
Sure do.
And I know that I work really hard to make sure that I'm buying local milk products, and I know where that milk and the ice cream and the cheese that my family consumes comes from.
Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
That's an important step. You say that, I say to everybody, there are things we can do, and it requires a very conscious decision about when you pick up the container of milk or the product, the dairy product, just make a connection to, is it from Pennsylvania or not, right? And that's part of our policy discussion is we've got to get people reconnected to what we produce here.
Indeed.
Yeah.
One of the issues that I've worked a lot on in the legislature is increasing access to high-speed internet, particularly in rural parts of York County and across the Commonwealth. Have partnered with my dear friend and colleague across the state and across the aisle, Representative Pam Snyder from Greene County. Can you talk a little bit about what expanded access to high-speed internet would mean to Pennsylvania agriculture?
Yeah, well, it is, I think it's next to the Farm Bill, and the economics of agriculture, it's right up there with one of those top issues, because you can't talk about anything here at Farm Show that you see that doesn't involve a technology component, right? The markets are everywhere. Unless you have access, they're nowhere. And for a lot of the farms who want to do any type of on-farm processing, marketing, retail, they want to be connected through tourism, you have to be connected. And without it, it's really a differentiator as to whether you can be competitive, whether you see a future in the business or not at many levels. And I think that it's that important. The governor's talked about it, you've talked about it. We are really hopeful the next session becomes part of the that emphasis of changing the model that we have today.
I'm encouraged.
Yes.
Senator Wayne Langerholt is chairing the Communications and Technology Committee in the Senate, and when he put his press release out, he identified it as a top priority of the committee. So
it's good to hear.
I'm hopeful that we'll be able to bring everyone together at the table and make it happen. I love the story about cows wearing Fitbits. And tractors being guided by GPS satellite imaging, and
that's all part of the conversation. And I've been places, as you have, where I really worry because you know what they have to be doing to be competitive, but they're not linked. Right. And it's not by their choice. So you say that's really a competitive disadvantage to somebody in certain parts of the state because of their access.
Right.
yeah, it's a huge issue for us in Pennsylvania agriculture.
Well, I look forward to working with you on
Yeah,
that
thank you.
issue. One of the things that we don't have, and we're glad that we don't have in York County, is the spotted lanternfly. But we know that it's close, and they're struggling with it in Chester County, and we're hoping it doesn't make it over the Susquehanna. Can you talk a little bit about the efforts that you've been undertaking to make sure that the spotted lanternfly doesn't impact York County and a lot of its crops? And
yes, yeah. Well, we have been battling this invasive pest, and I'll tell you, it is invasive in every way, right? Socially, economically,
right.
Environmentally. It has not met a crop it doesn't like. And it's a real concern. First time in North America, in Berks County, we went from 3 counties to 9 counties to 13 counties quarantined just across the river from you. We want to keep it there. That's been our strategy with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who's been our partner
right.
in Penn State University and the College of Ag Sciences, is to contain it and then suppress it while we're researching, because we don't have a commercially available spray at this point for broadband. You have the broad approach spraying. We're just not there yet, and we're probably a couple of years out. So what do you do in the meantime? And we've got families that are just at wit's end, who are overwhelmed with it, and I get it. So we're trying to deal with the research. We've got 25 different research projects looking at basic biology to chemical controls, but being sensitive to, we don't want to kill all the beneficial bugs and
right.
butterflies, right? And that's always this sort of dance you do. You've got a problem, but don't create two.
Exactly.
Right. So we're doing fine. We're going to. The USDA and Secretary Perdue has committed to resources again for 2019, which is great news for Pennsylvania. Again, one of those farm bill components.
Wonderful.
There's additional money in the spotted lanternfly. The congressional delegation in Pennsylvania supported that. So our efforts in 2019, we'll do the same. We've got a perimeter around the 13 counties. We're going to work on the inside, U.S. Department of Agriculture sort of on the outside of that, and then working with our municipal governments and county commissioners, conservation districts,
right.
really work hard inside. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And we are very supportive and hope that those efforts are successful because we know what it could potentially mean to York County.
Yeah.
So you referenced the research that needs to take place. One of the things that will be coming forward soon is the governor's budget.
Yes.
And in years past, we've had some serious concerns about funding for essential programs, the Ag Extension Program, Penn Vet. What can we anticipate from the governor's budget with regard to agriculture?
Yeah, well, I hope good things, right? It's been amazingly supportive. I talked to them the other day at the opening ceremony for Farm Show about the needs of ag, and they were, it's both the work of the department and the general government needs that we have in food safety and animal health and making sure the regulatory programs are covered, making sure we have funding for Penn State University College of Ag Sciences, make sure the University of Pennsylvania Vet School is funded, and hopefully there's additional resources for spotted lanternfly in there. We're hopeful the dairy program, which is one of the components that you supported last year, and we thank you for that. The first time that Pennsylvania, in our budget, had separate dollars carved out for dairy investment, which is important to us, of course. We'll go through this process of budgets, which we've done before, of lines in, lines out, but I think in terms of general thrust of agriculture, you're going to see it in the governor's budget.
I'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to that. So, to wrap this up, some of your priorities going forward in the future, what are some of the top things that you would like to see accomplished at the Department of Agriculture for the benefit of all Pennsylvanians?
Yeah, I think, I always start with the issues of workforce, right? The workforce of agriculture is, looks an awful lot like the workforce of a manufacturer, right? It's skills, it's competencies, it's people, it's, all of that is needed in agriculture. We as a department don't have as much of a direct role in the workforce development programs. We work with our sister agencies in education and labor and industry. But I put that at like A on the list to make sure that we're doing the right things to cultivate the workforce. That's the apprenticeships, that's ag education, right? It's getting into the schools to talk about, just to spawn this conversation about agriculture is important to us, of course, but planting that seed where people say, well, I didn't think about food safety. I didn't think about, the environment is partly or technology, whatever it is, right? We know they're there, but I think part of our job in the department has to be how do you bring the resources to bear as a department, being a great advocate, the interface between the public and industry. That's number one. Two, I think the concerns around the Chesapeake Bay, they've been there. We're going to have to make some further commitments here in 2019 to meet the mandates, and I know what that looks like on the farm. I live with it.
Right.
Try and the farms, we know they want to be good stewards. That's not a question. It's an issue of time. It's an issue of money.
Right.
And when you get a year like 2018 where you're completely soaked every day, right? You know exactly what's happening to your crops and such. But the bay and conservation stewardship, and I think just long term, making sure that we're smart about what we do on the health side and looking at health, nutrition and agriculture as part of the health solution. I think is part of our conversation. We should be in that conversation.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
So anyhow, that's just a short list.
Well, that's good to know. I see a lot of hope.
Yes.
We've had an ag education bill that didn't quite make it over the finish line, so we'll look forward to working with you on that. We've seen a resurgence in smallmouth bass in the Susquehanna River, which I think bodes very well for the quality of the water in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And I always say, it's great to buy local, particularly when it comes to your food. And we're fortunate in York County, and I think across the state, in having wonderful access to locally grown and locally produced agricultural products.
Yeah.
So
we're privileged, to have access. You've got some amazing farmers in York County. Farm markets, farmland. It's a great place. So thanks for leading it.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
Pleasure's mine. Look forward to working with you. Thank you.